Welcome to Doing the Work, a Naples integrated recovery podcast. My name is Brian, and this space is for anyone who's tired of surviving the same emotional and behavioral loops, whether that's anxiety, trauma, addiction, or problems in your relationships. Around here, we cut the surface level advice, no sugarcoating, no platitudes, no bumper sticker wisdom. We focus on clarity, responsibility, emotional discipline, and the courage to look at yourself honestly so that you can stop repeating the same old patterns and start living with intention instead of reaction. Let's get into it. Hey listeners, a few years ago, probably about 7 and change by the time that this airs, if you would have told me that I would have had 7 bird feeders outside of my house and would get genuinely excited watching a cardinal eat sunflower seeds, I would have thought that you had 2 heads or that something seriously wrong had happened to me, because that would sound like some soft, end-of-life aged suburban behavior, the kind of thing that people drift into once their nervous system has kind of given up on life and they start caring about, like, if they have a nice, comfortable pair of loafers and pleated khakis, maybe the weather or some good mulch, or if your favorite flashlight has fresh batteries. But I can tell you that by the time that this airs, Lord willing, I will have 7 years sober from drugs and alcohol and mind and mood altering substances. And I can tell you that now I go outside and just sit on my front or back porch and watch birds. And I notice a lot of stuff that I would have never seen 7 years ago. That a cardinal comes in and acts like he owns the place, or a crow shows up and starts acting like a fucking asshole and pushing all the other birds off of there, or a woodpecker lands and suddenly the whole feeder changes, and I watch all of it and I care, and that is really interesting. And I had to sit and wonder, how the fuck did I get to a place where I'm watching birds and I am so content? And my partner will sit out there and go, "What are you thinking about?" And I'm like, not a thing. I'm just watching birds. And my brain could not have allowed that 7 years ago. So why is that? Is that because, like, when you cross into your 40s that you just become a geriatric fuck? I don't think that that's it. There probably is something about midlife where your attention changes. And so I want to name with a few stories about how sick my brain used to be in active addiction and what neuroplasticity looks like, of how it can be rewired for something much healthier. But I'm going to try to do that without being jargony. So I can recall a few times when I was sick with addiction, watching people enjoy quiet things and me almost feeling offended by watching them so content with their quiet little things. And it was like contentment exposed something in me that I did not have the language for. And now we know that that is reward, salience, attention, addiction, consciousness, and the way that the mind colors whatever it touches. And birds are a great example of that, because the real subject is the receiver. What changed in me that made something this quiet become meaningful? Because the birds did not change over 7 years or become more alive. The world did not wait until I turned 40 to start offering small little pleasures. The change happened in my receiving system of the world. Addiction had shaped that system. My police experience had shaped that. Trauma, exposure, recovery, all of those things shaped it in slow and weird little ways that are easy to miss until you catch yourself drinking some tea and watching birds and feeling lucky that a cardinal showed up. Now, about a decade ago, when I was still very sick with addiction, I worked midnights as a police officer in the town where my mom lived. And sometimes during the shift, I would stop by her house and I'd come in, carrying my midnight shift cop nervous system with me, semi-alert probably, because since I had a serious alcohol problem, I was probably partially hungover, tired, caffeinated, scanning. And here is my mother, probably at this age or this time she was like, I don't know, 65, 70, and she's retired. She is awake late in her house because that is her rhythm, and she would just have this jigsaw spread across the table, a Hallmark Christmas movie playing in the background, and she makes this little content noise where she's like and so I call that squirreling. She's not even aware that she does this little content humming as she's just kind of scanning for pieces and just in this happy little world of a cardboard puzzle piece and predictable movie plot. And I remember looking at her with this confused irritation. Again, this is through the lens of addiction, that I almost had this disgust. Man, that sounds like a harsh word to use, but it was like puzzled contempt that I was like, this makes you happy? You're happy doing this? You're enjoying this? This is fulfilling for you? A puzzle and a movie where everybody knows the ending after the first 3 minutes? And the part that bothered me was that she was really happy. She was peaceful in a way that my sick brain could not understand. This was not performing contentment. Now, this is one of my bitches about AA, is that I see a lot of performative people that are like, I'm just happy, joyous, and free. No, you're not. It's evident in your behavior that you're not. But this woman was not trying to prove anything. She was simply enjoying something slow, repetitive, ordinary, and harmless. And I could observe it and I couldn't enter it. That memory really stands out to me because it shows the addiction so clearly, that I was just watching something that seemed so boring. But looking back, I was seeing that from a sick-brained, hungover, overstimulated, dopamine-starved brain, because there's nothing wrong with the puzzle. Brian's receiver was damaged. And I saw the same thing a few years later when I was in residential treatment. So eventually I did get help for my addiction. And one of my roommates was this old guy named Norris. He was probably about 75 or 80. And we had no TV, no internet, no easy stimulation. And it was like a Saturday night, and Norris, of course, this guy, he lived on Oat Bran, okay? I mean, he is your stereotypical old guy. And he had this massive John Adams biography book. It could have stopped a AR-15 round. This book must have been 1,000 pages. And he would just sit there with his glasses on, lick his finger and turn the page, and occasionally chuckle quietly to himself. And I remember thinking, like a week or 2 weeks sober, I was like, holy fuck, if this is what sobriety is, I am ready to relapse already. And I want to be honest about that because it captures the state of how sick my brain was better than any kind of polished recovery language ever could. Norris was enjoying this book, and that is all. He was probably inside of this world of history, argument, personality, politics, language, memory, and curiosity, and all I saw was this old man with a 1,000-page manuscript, and I had no escape, no access to absorption. All I could feel was agitation. And this is one of the tricks of addiction, is it convinces you that your inability to enjoy a normal life is evidence that normal life is empty. Because the puzzle looks stupid. Well, 7 years later, I still don't like puzzles. The book seemed unbearable. Now I read all the time. A quiet room felt like punishment because my brain was so loud, and a sober evening seemed like the universe took away the only thing that had any voltage. The sick brain has no humility about its own condition. It does not say, hey, I have a damaged reward system that cannot metabolize subtle pleasure. It just says, this fucking sucks. Now, there is a old Buddhist psychology idea that helps here. And this is not a religious sermon. I just want you to think about this useful idea. Your consciousness is colored by the state that is moving through it. We experience the world through the condition of the mind that is receiving the world. So a room can feel safe or irritating or lonely or warm or boring or sacred or pointless or threatening, depending on what is happening inside the person who is sitting inside of it. Now, that may sound obvious until I put a little bit of pressure on it. So let's use an example of a soccer game. A mother is watching her daughter be the goalie, and she's seeing some potential danger of maybe getting a ball, to the face that knocks out a tooth, or maybe some pride or love for every moment that the ball is shifting around, and perhaps a hired driver is waiting to take home somebody else, and they're just sitting through the game with boredom and impatience. Or a referee that's present there might be thinking about the rules and spacing and whether something is a foul or control. These are all the same field, same sounds, same weather, same players, different consciousness. So that's my mom's puzzle. She's receiving this night through contentment, rhythm, familiarity, simple enjoyment, and I was watching this through disgust and fatigue, addiction, police patrol brain, and a reward system that was so fried that it constantly demanded a stronger signal. Same house, same puzzle, different world. Same with Norris and the John Adams book. He was receiving silence as a content space, and I was receiving silence as deprivation that was intolerable. And he was absorbed without being consumed, and I needed intensity to feel like I was alive. But we were sitting in the same treatment center, the same room in Naples, Florida, with two completely different experiences of reality. Addiction shrinks the field of significance. That's probably one of the cleanest ways to say it, because the brain starts assigning importance to smaller and sicker groups of cues. For example, the drink, the bottle, the bar, the phone, your drug dealer, the fantasy, the ritual, the secret, the escape, the relief. Those are the things that start to glow, and everything else gets pushed into the background. And this is where dopamine matters. Now, this gets talked about on TikTok and in shorts with people that probably don't really have a great understanding of it, almost to the point that it gets kind of ruined, because dopamine is not just about pleasure. It is about wanting, pursuit, prediction, cue learning, and salience. Now, I don't want to get too science heavy, but salience is your brain's marketing system. It decides what pops out of the background and says, hey man, pay attention to this. And in addiction, that system gets trained around spike and relief. The brain learns that certain cues can predict a powerful state change, and those cues become bright neon lights. And after several years of repetition and training, then ordinary life starts to look very dim compared to those bright flashing neon lights. A jigsaw cannot compete with a nervous system that is trained on intensity, and a 800 to 1,000 page biography cannot compete with a brain that has been trained on chemical relief. The same way that a cardinal at a feeder cannot compete with a nervous system that is demanding escape because every moment is intolerable. And if your nervous system has been trained around escape, novelty, and immediate mood alteration, then that quiet moment could be perfectly good, but a sick brain has lost access to that frequency. The receiver is damaged. And this is why early recovery can feel so bleak for people. So if you hear some bumper sticker slogan like, oh, just enjoy the simple things, that is fucking insulting to somebody who cannot even receive that channel because their brain is so sick. Coffee is just coffee. Going for a walk is just a walk. They don't have access. They can't see and feel and hear the same things that somebody with a not sick brain is experiencing. So for them, you tell them, just read. Well, that's just staring at paper. Silence feels like everything that they are avoiding is all present all at once. And a normal evening can feel like there is just no color in life. The world might be present, but the reward system is sampling it in low resolution, and it can detect urgency, craving, irritation, and relief, but it struggles to detect texture. So this is one part that I wish more people understood about addiction and recovery, is that quiet pleasure requires a healthy receiver, because you can put somebody in front of beauty, peace, love, music, books, nature, prayer, ordinary family warmth, and their consciousness might not be able to receive it. The thing may be good, the person may be genuinely loved by others, the room may be safe, and the brain is not able to receive those things as nourishing. That was me looking at my mom. She had the capacity for this puzzle in this movie, and I just had disgust and contempt, because contempt was easier than admitting that I didn't have access to what she did. Or this is me watching Norris. He had capacity for John Adams and history and silence, and I saw sobriety as prison because my nervous system could only understand reward if it came with high intensity. And this is why the bird feeder is evidence now, because it shows me that my receiver has changed. And that's at 7 years, okay? 7 years is how long it took for my receiver to start getting signals like that. That now I can notice birds, that I can care when one shows up, or I can feel interest when the feeder gets busy, or I can kind of laugh at a squirrel that is trying to manipulate around that. Okay, this is what kind of old man I am, is that I buy specific feeders that, are squirrel resistant. These are not things that I would have thought of 7 or 10 years ago. There is I'm going to go back to like a technical Buddhism map about senses and consciousness. So a bird lands on a feeder. Your eye receives color and movement. Maybe your ear hears chirping, or the seeds coming out, or the scraping of the feeder. The body receives stillness, in my case now, or probably 10 years ago, restlessness, and then the mind adds its own weather. Memory, mood, craving, boredom, gratitude, irritation, peace. Try to stay with me on this map. The useful point is that the bird never arrives by itself. The bird arrives into consciousness already colored by something else. Because if I am anxious, if I'm thinking about how the contractor for the construction job that I'm doing has fucked me over, then I am not seeing it. If I am angry over something that happened, then filling the feeder may feel like, oh, God, another chore, like go fill the bird feeder. If I am restless, then I have to check my phone every 10 seconds while I am sitting on the porch. And if I'm clear, then the same bird and squirrels become vivid. And this is why it can be helpful to practice some mindfulness of what state you are currently in and how you are receiving the moment. Because often we collapse the object and the state together. We say, this is fucking boring, when actually boredom may be the thing that is coloring consciousness. Or we say, this is unbearable, when really aversion is currently running the show. Or if you are maybe sick with addiction, then we say, I need relief, I need a drink, when what has really happened is craving has taken the microphone. That small separation matters, because once you can see the state, it can become less convincing. Modern neuroscience gives this a concrete mechanism that repeated states and repeated reactions shape your nervous system. The more that a pathway fires, the more available it becomes. The more often a cue predicts relief or intensity, the faster the brain tags that cue for the next time. So, if the bottle, for example, is the thing that lights you up and says this is going to bring relief, then the brighter the neon sign for that. And addiction builds itself into your attention with repetition, and recovery also has to rebuild attention the same way. So they might say in AA meetings, and I think it's kind of accurate, that you can't walk 10 or 20 miles into a forest and then just turn around and think that you're going to be out. I don't think that it takes 20 years to get sick and then 20 years to get healthy again. But again, I do want to point out, at least for me, I was pretty sick with addiction for at least 15 years. And these are things that I'm noticing at year 7 on my journey back out of the woods. So that makes the bird feeder a tiny little neuroplastic training ground, because I fill it, I notice, I look again later, and some days I go out there and there's no birds on the bird feeder, and then other days there is just a whole little neighborhood, and I'm like yelling to my partner, get over here, look at it, hey, oh my God, there's 12 birds, look at all these birds. And over time, my brain learns that this is worth seeing. A small movement outside the window predicts something safe and interesting. Anticipation does not have to lead to damage. Reward can be clean. Surprise can happen without shame. And that all might sound so embarrassingly small, but small, repeated experiences is how your brain changes. And recovery is full of these tiny repetitions. A morning where you have some coffee can become enough. A conversation where you stay present without opening your phone 18 times to watch 2-second clips or scroll is enough. A piece of music that you have probably heard 50 times, you notice something different. So for me, as silly as that sounds, the bird feeder shows that my attention has come back toward life. My history also adds another layer, because my attention was professionally trained to scan when I was a police officer. Police work trains you to be watching people's hands, waistbands, exits, cars, doors, movement, tone, inconsistency, and if something feels slightly wrong, that is something that a police officer has to pay very close attention to. Then add in midnight shift, that has its own nervous system. There's a lot of weird people and a lot of weird shit that happens after dark, which is why I kind of like being home at 8:30 or 9 o'clock. And a bird feeder uses some of that same machinery with a different target, because now I'm watching movement and I'm noticing small shifts, tracking behavior. The difference is that the movement is safe and my old scanner gets a harmless assignment. It can look for life instead of danger. It can notice instead of bracing. It can track without having to intervene. And for me, that's part of the pleasure, is my nervous system gets to be awake without being armored. And for a brain that is shaped by police work, addiction, trauma, exposure, and responsibility, that is a very particular kind of relief. Damn, I hate to do this, but I've got to go to work. So I am going to come back in a few hours. If the mic sounds different, that's why. Stay tuned. Go grab a cup of coffee. Go see what kind of birds are outside your front door, and check back in a few minutes. Hello, everybody. I am back after 8 clients, and I left off about the particular kind of relief. Sorry, I think that mic is a little close. There we go. So, if you were to go back a couple of podcast episodes, there's one where I talked about what Buddhism calls the 3 poisons, and I used an example of how that applied for me, and I'm going to re-reference that. There are healthy and unhealthy states that translate with addiction, and unhealthy roots, as I talked about in that episode, are grasping, aversion, and delusion, or not seeing clearly. Grasping says, I need more. Aversion says, I cannot stand this feeling of like boredom or whatever the thing is. And delusion says, this time it's going to be different. And that combination can run a life. It can make a person chase relief while calling it freedom. It can make escape feel like self-care, and it can make the next drink, the next hit, the next scroll, orgasm, purchase, or argument feel like the solution, and then depression or anxiety follows, because the state that you act from usually creates consequences. Healthier states would include mindfulness, steadiness, generosity, clarity, love, trying to find some balance. And I think that that is where the bird feeder is a very helpful, useful image, because I put the food in the bird feeder and then I just wait and pay attention. I enjoy life that I don't own. I create conditions and then I wait. I cannot make the birds come. I cannot make a cardinal stay. Cannot force that it's not going to be 4 crows. I can't schedule exact moments that give me pleasure, but I can participate, and then reality does what reality does. So I think that that is the healthier relationship with wanting, because addiction wants to control the state. It wants to change your mood right now. Remove this discomfort right now. Give me relief right now. And a bird feeder does not work that way. It works through conditions and patience and reception. And sometimes like I said, I yell to my partner, oh my God, there's 12 birds out here. And some days there is not a thing going on. And when that happens, then I get to see what my mind does with that too. Beauty requires capacity, And I think that that is one of the important ideas here. A nervous system that is only in survival mode spends every bit of energy on danger, relief from uncomfortable states, prediction, control, and escape. It does not have interest in subtle colors or small sounds or slow pleasure, or a 70-year-old person putting together a jigsaw puzzle. When the system is overloaded, that kind of beauty becomes very expensive, or your receiver just doesn't know how to tune into it. Most people know this without needing the science. When you are overwhelmed, music is noise. A loved one's voice may be a demand, or a sunny day does not even reach you. The world may have all of those qualities and inputs, but if your receiver is jammed, nothing's getting through there. So that helps me understand my mom's puzzle making, or not puzzle making. She's a card maker. Her puzzling and her squirreling, and that doesn't make me any wiser. It shows that she was available to that moment, and I was armed against it. Just like Norris in his book, I was trapped in my own need for stimulation, and now I can very happily watch birds and squirrels, and I feel like I am watching capacity return in a very ordinary form. My system can take in something that is small and find it very rewarding without it needing to be like blasted open like a cop kicking a door down. So the birds are showing me that recovery can reprogram your attention, and it's more than abstinence. I mean, sure, it's great to have fewer consequences, maybe to not piss the bed when you are sleeping, to have improved relationships or a cleaner conscience. Those things are all great, but recovery can also change what the brain marks as worth noticing, and it changes what can enter consciousness as meaningful. So Billy's puzzle, Norris's book, Brian's 700 bird feeders, because I'm still a fucking addict. They are all the same lessons across different years. A mind colored by grasping struggles to understand what it means to be content, and a mind that is covered by aversion struggles to understand how to be still, and a mind that is colored by craving cannot understand what enough means. But when the coloring changes, the same world can start to show up differently. And this is humbling because I have certainly mistaken mind states for reality more times than I can count. It's also helpful because states can be seen and trained. Your brain can learn new salience. Your reward system can regain range. Consciousness can become less crude, and a life that once felt like nothing but punishment can become textured again. A puzzle can be satisfying. A book can be a great experience. And a bird eating seed can hold attention without owning you. So, why do I care about birds? Because my brain finally allows me to, I guess. Because my consciousness can. Because the receiver has changed enough to let them in. And years ago, I would have walked past that same category of experience and felt absolutely nothing or contempt. Oh, this gives you pleasure? This is what like a nice life looks like to you? No. And today, I can stand at the window and genuinely feel interested watching a blue jay eat. Wow. That is a small thing from the outside and a large thing from the inside, because these feeders, they're not magic. These birds aren't rescuing me. Nature didn't cure addiction. This is just a real life example of consciousness getting its color back after years of being trained towards intensity, relief, threat, and escape. So now I think about my mom doing her puzzles, and how at one time I wondered, how on earth is this satisfying for you? Or Norris with his John Adams book. I've got to look that up on Amazon and see if it's as thick as I remember it being. And in that moment, the thought of sobriety looked unbearable. And now I am the old guy with my comfy khaki Dockers pleated and my loafers and a flashlight with good batteries, watching the birds and going, oh yeah, pesky Peggy the squirrel is back, Davis. And he's like, that's really good. I'm really glad that you're happy about the birds. So I can understand something now that I couldn't understand then. These people, they were not settling for a smaller life. They had access to a quieter one, and my system was just too messed up to hear it. 7 years ago, 10 years ago, I saw quiet contentment, and I thought, what the fuck is this? And today, I can watch birds eat, and I'm like, oh my goodness. Same kind of ordinary life, different mind, receiving it, and that is the whole point. Thanks for listening. And that's doing the work, so hope that you're doing yours as well. Thanks for spending the time with me. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with somebody who may need to hear it. Be kind to yourself, be kind to people around you. Remember that we're all doing the best that we can with the tools that we currently have, and we're all capable of growing past that. If you'd like to reach out or connect, send me an email, brian@naplesintegratedrecovery.com. I hope to hear from you there. In the meantime, thanks again for listening. I'll see you on the next one.